Hey guys, I'm Thomas. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Owkin, and we are here in the library of the company in Paris. I'm actually a doctor by training, and I have the chance to be with this little cute tiger here. He has glasses and somehow some sighting problems, but it's gonna happen to a lot of people. And this is one disease that no one has understood, why people don't see well, the myopia and everything, and AI might help. So today I want to talk to you about how AI and medicine are gonna evolve towards one thing. Is it how we actually see the data? And I'm just going to drive you through a little bit of history and facts in a quite uncertain way, I hope, just to explain you what are we doing today to try to improve the way we understand medicine. So like before BC, like 400 years ago, before BC, there was Hippocrates, and Hippocrates did a lot of great work to go from cosmology to actual medicine. And at the time it was really about trying to use your own eyes, your own way to see, to understand how people are. There was not much touching, there was not much opening, hopefully, but there was really just the fact of seeing the data, seeing the patients with your own eyes, and everything was about observations. And later on, people were still using anatomy and trying to describe things. So it was about seeing, but also trying to describe things, however, without any more invasive way to try to understand biology and all the scales and modalities that describe a human body. And finally, something happens in the last 500 when Hooke and Leeuwenhoek, it's very difficult to say, put a lens on a drop of water. It was called a microscope, and they could see inside the cells. They could see inside the organs, and that was a very new way to be able to see things with more depth. Here, there was a new scale of who we could actually see medical data. The microscope was a big invention for these reasons. But then the World War happens much later on, and the World War gave pretty much an amazing opportunity with new type of medical imaging, the way to see inside the body. And that was actually a new scale, again, to try to understand how we can actually understand how the human body works. Much later, MRI happens, and MRI happens, in the late 1970s, 80s, in a non-invasive way, because that CT scan, for example, are very bad. They give radiation. It gave just a non-invasive way to see even deeper, using the water molecules movement to be able to understand how the body is made and the composition. Once again, we could see the data with a full new eyes. And finally, molecular biology happens, and molecular biology was something amazing. And you can see here two very famous people, Watson and Crick, describing this first helix. We could understand how not only things were happening or built, we were understanding how they were made. And it was the first dictionary of life, understanding the first strand of DNA. And then the Human Genome Project happened in the 1990s, and it was the first kind of big data a program, starting to have enough data to try to understand the human genome and be able to map it out. And that was amazing, because to a new way of seeing, we were adding the concept of large data sets. And the Human Genome was the first at-scale project to try to go deeper. And AI came in, and in 2012, ResNets were able to classify images based on neural networks. That was the first time this actually was possible, trying to differentiate one thing from another using this new way of analyzing data and the new way of deep learning and artificial intelligence. And the era of deep learning grew until pretty much 2004 and until now as well, but it really enters biology then, 2014. And this is really, really where we start to have amazing products. And 6 years later, something like 2020, AlphaFolds happened. The DeepMind, Nobel Prize for Dummies database, and just the way we can actually give a new space. It's not only how you see data, it's not only you can see inside the human body, inside the cells. No, you can open the space of exploration. Health is like an exploration. It's like a trip towards a very far island. You have to explore and discover so much. And this just opened the space to be able to map out and modelize the structure of the proteins. Not only the function for now, but really the structure. And this gives amazing and tremendous possibilities to the world of chemistry to go much further. But that was amazing steps towards history, understanding everything. Today, we're still not much far in healthcare, and I'm a doctor, I can talk about it. We still have pretty much no ideas about what happens to an embryo after day 14. We're not really studying, we don't really understand how that works. We understand very, very few viruses in the world, maybe 0.1%. All the viruses are not mapped out. There's no huge effort at scale because it would cost billions, a lot of money, and actually mapping out all the viruses in the world. We know nothing about virus. We probably know even better the cosmos and the space, maybe 5% of what's surrounding us in space. So we have no idea about what's surrounding us. We don't understand why people have cancer, why people sometimes have cancer very young now. We see pancreatic cancer in patients that are 40 years old. Why so? What's the cause? Is it a virus? Is it the environment? Is it like UTF? Is it like, genetic disposition or mutations? No one really knows. We have no idea. We have even less ideas about why people even have a cold. We don't know how to cure a cold, a common cold. There's no curative options. Because there's very bad running nose in wintertime, and nobody can give you a way to actually make it shorter than sometimes a month. This is crazy, right? What about Alzheimer? People are building drugs that kind of augment the quality of life for mid-impairment patients, but this is not revolution. This is just incremental progresses. Just because we have no idea the why. We don't know why people are sick. And AI in general has overstepped by trying to really focus on chemistry. The reality is we need to understand the ground truth of biology. We need to understand the cause of diseases. And we're still using, mice models. Cancer has been treated in mice 20 years ago. We're still using these poor mice. What the fuck? It doesn't work out, right? It's not a good model. We're still using cell lines without the microenvironment, and we are validating drugs based on this intuition. We're still using very intuitive manner and not a data-driven manner because we don't have the intelligence to do so. Finally, precision medicine doesn't happen at scale. Finally, when you have a treatment, pretty much most of the time, like 85% of the time, you get the same treatment than everyone else. However, you're different. If you have a cancer, the cancer is different from somebody else. The clones are different. Your body is different. Your level of red blood cells might be completely different from somebody else, but we have the same average at the population level. And sometimes we're going to treat someone from a low dose of magnesium, whereas this level would be fine. I think nothing is understood today in biology. We're extremely far to have anything about causality and ground truth. And this is the biggest problem of medicine. We're still correlative. We're still correlating things together, not trying to understand the grail of AI today in medicine, which is causality. And causality means how we make a perturbation in the system won't change the outcome. A very funny story about causality is there was a company of car insurance in France trying to figure out that which car have the most accidents in France. And they were trying to understand. They realized that red car had more accidents. Was this the cause, or was this a correlative factor? And they just, realized that if you paint the car, you make a perturbation in a different color, it doesn't change. This is about causality. You need to get some, perturbations to things to try to understand if the effects change. We need to get there, because if we don't understand why people have cancer, why people have Alzheimer, and we're just still focusing on improving productivity and chemistry, we won't go super far. The reason in the end is very simple. Biology is too complicated for the human mind. There's too many scales. How you go from a protein, from a gene to a protein to a cell, cells to an organ to a more complex system. We don't understand the context. We don't understand the multimodalities. We don't know how to connect them very well. We don't understand how you go from one scale to another. And people are still doing kind of bioinformatics pipeline, linking few genes with different arrows. It doesn't work. Biology is way too complicated for the human mind. So what do we do about this? We need to see things differently. We need to keep on improving our sites. And we have to do this by step. And today, who can do it? I think the biopharma has made amazing progress. People are using GLP-1. And I love GLP-1. It's the biggest productivity factor. People don't die before 65 years old. This is amazing, right? This is like the biggest progress probably in terms of productivity, much bigger than AI. We make amazing progress on cardiovascular, still remaining the first cause of death, very, very close with cancer. And we make a lot of great progress, but once again, not know how to treat a common cold. Very, very bad at really finding curative options for cancer. And today, cancer aimed at becoming a chronic disease, but people are kind of giving away the idea of really treating it as a curative options. So the biopharma has made amazing progress. There's been the key factor to innovation. Like biopharma is strong, right? Not like CRO is boring, but biopharma has really bring amazing things. However, they're too big, too much legacy. They're not AGI native, and they're still using some old-time models and intuition. To be able to do that. They have a hard time grouping their own data sets together and hard time finding an agentic strategy today and recruiting very good talents who prefer to go for Tropic, Google, OpenAI, or okay, actually. So I think biopharma has bring an amazing talents, but the R&D of biopharma might be led by AI companies. And the future of health company will be like biopharma keeping late stage, M&A, it's becoming big M&A franchise, but the early R&D will be AI driven at 100%. The second thing is, as I say, about this new type of intelligence. So how do we call this causal intelligence, this cross-domain intelligence, an intelligence that can understand really the ground truth of biology and then matching really great drugs and optimizing the great drugs and finding this in clinical trials that can be faster in the right population with a precision approach. We need precision at the stage of clinical trial. Understanding spatial biology, understanding connections and causality between all the systems and contexts of the biology, because biology is super context dependent. You do an experiment, you change 1 degree, everything changes. So this intelligence, we can call it biology artificial super intelligence, B-A-S-I. AGI in biology is pretty low because AGI, people are bad at understanding biology. So the barrier is low, we'll get to AGI. We may pretty are at AGI. But ASI is something that can come if we do understand the multi-modalities, the multi-organs, and the cause of diseases, and really finally trying to find the right precision approach. Maybe everyone has cancer will have a different ADC, a different combination based on his number of clones, based on the cause of this disease. And maybe we'll discover that most cancer are from a viral origin, some other are more linked to an environment, and that's really something we have to go through. Can we really keep on bringing some incremental progresses, productivity gains, team reduction, when the biggest problem in the world is that we don't understand medicine and we don't understand the biology of patients? So this is called BASI, right? This is what we try to build at Owkin, but the idea is building a closed loop ecosystem. This is difficult for big tech companies. They're too big and they don't really have everything. When I mean a closed loop, we need a very best frontier lab in biology and medicine with a software that can orchestrate tools, skills, which are metacognition kind of scripts of people, LLM, having like coding agent, like Claude coding agent and everything. Everything needs to be one tool, one copilot. This copilot has to be an AI scientist as well, in an autopilot manner where can run campaign of biology, discovering things all the time, writing like 100 papers per week that have to be reviewed, and finally getting to a land grab on IP and strategic insights. However, this is not it. We also need a lab in the loop. When I say a lab, I mean a wet lab, not only a dry lab. The wet lab can figure out new data of perturbations to get to this causality, to feed and train the models, but also validate in a very automatic manner, even if automation of workspace in the lab are very difficult, but not very flexible. And validate things in the models that are the closest from human, like organoid model. We're not doing like mice and mice models. We need to close the translational gap. However, the lab in the loop is amazing, but we also need like the pharma in the loop. We need people to have, AI companies have to keep on working with pharma to bring these strategic insights, to bring how to develop drugs, how to go to commercialization and launch the drugs. But this is not it. Having a pharma in the loop, having a lab in the loop also needs something else, what we call a reality check. And this means actual solutions for patients. If you build an AI, it's bullshit by design, unless you show to treat something where the pharma have failed. And they failed many places. So you need to be able at scale to find solutions that are first in class and actually treat, and not only just come back to chronic conditions, cancer, Alzheimer, sarcopenia induced by GLP-1 and everything else. Also need to be able to use the same software and AI scientists to build new prediction tools to predict relapse. This is the only way to build precision medicine. But the only thing that matters is to be hospital in the loop as well. You need to connect research to care. Your AI scientist has to be great for drug development. It also has to be amazing to treat patients with the same intelligence, with the same infrastructure, with the same tools and skills. And if you find an intelligence that understands biology really well, it will be as good to build a drug of tomorrow that actually being able to find patients solutions when they're in very late stage line of therapy in cancer, or when they have a rare disease where no options is given to them. We need to connect research to care, and hospitals' data sets of super high quality is the key to bring this future of biology artificial superintelligence with a one architecture model that can be able to reason over actual LLM. And companies doing Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, amazing job, but they're built on the actual World Wide Web. don't have the trust from big hospitals. And this is where I think the field can go. It's trying to really build closed loop ecosystem, like smaller companies that really will be able to actually get the right data, but also get the validation loops and the reality check, which I mean actual products. So yes, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic will have their own molecular companies and biotech to validate and to prove that things are right. And they're making amazing progress. The field has changed. If you ask me tomorrow, what is the pharma of tomorrow? I'd say it will be AGI native. It will be Anthropic, probably will be the biggest pharma in the world. And maybe Google or Owkin or OpenAI. That's possible. The future of R&D will be AGI native. I hope you agree. Finally, everything has to come around data, but data has to be super high quality. Not tier 2 hospitals, just the best hospitals with a KOL in the loop, key opinion leader. When you build a data set in glioblastoma, you want to work with Roger Stoop, the best key opinion leader in glioblastoma in Northwestern. Or if you do breast cancer with Fabrice André, if you work on cardiovascular, Professor Gabriel Steg in Paris, you need to work with the best people because data has to be very profound at a single level, very deeply phenotyped. But the quality of the data has to come with a key opinion leader involved. You need like forward engineering teams to be on every site. You also need data from all over the world. Otherwise, AI is not robust, especially for diagnostics, and you lose robustness. For the robustness, you also need to transform this KOL into skills. Skills, the metacognition, can be methodological or the arts of science. Be able to download into a script that will give a robustness layer. If you use LLM otherwise, the answers change all the time. You need a robustness layer which has metacognition skills. I'm talking about this because I think there's 3 levels in biology and medicine. There is what we call engineering, what we call science. So engineering is trying to figure out publications, like data-driven principles. Science is to create new methodology, like clinical trials. But art is the best. Art is how people have an intuition, how this AI can get to this art level, getting intuitions about how to discover new biology and new medicine. We need to get to the art level, and we need the meta skills and metacognition on top of new LLM tools and skills, and agents, sorry. So this future is called an AI scientist. It's what Owkin is building, what Google is building with co-scientists. Owkin is called Owkin K-Pro. I think we're the only one to have everything in the loop. We're extremely excited because we think this is the only AI scientist that can really run new experiments in very complicated setup, very complicated cancers, Alzheimer, rare diseases, because we have the right data, we have the skills, we have the tools, and we orchestrated everything into one single software. But the beauty of this software, he's not only smart for drug development and research, he's extremely smart for care. And we are really translating this into taking decisions and helping people getting more insights about very complicated use case. And we're super excited about the field in general. And I know the Anthropic launch on healthcare for Claude, Gemini, everything, co-scientists is really exciting. The field is heating up. It's so great, right? Because no one has won this field. The race is still open. Finally, we need to go to very true biology reasoning, but we have to be very medically driven, right? I mean, we have to really try to understand every time. Are we discovering real things? Are we just putting a new molecule on the market that already exists? I think we have to be very cool about finding deterministic outcome to be able to validate our approach that is stochastic by design. We need to be very careful of this and try to really validate everything we discovered. And finally, everything is about the loop, the continuous loops, having KOL involved. We have 180 of the best professors validating everything because in the end, the best discoveries has to be validated by humans that will choose the right ones. That's pretty much it. I just want to emphasize again that the future of hospitals will be fully integrated hospitals, where in the same hospitals you will have data centers, you will have patients being fully screened, having so much data with full body MRI, very complicated blood test, being able to get as many data, and then you have the dry lab around to make analysis on people and bring precision parkour for every patient that will go to new type of units. I dream about this hospital of the future will be fully integrated to bring biology, artificial intelligence to every single patient worldwide. So bring us, and please join us in the story of Owkin. We're really trying to bring a new way to understand medicine with AGI-driven kind of medicine and AGI-driven pharma at the same time. This is the adventure of something new. And we can treat every patient, and every patient deserves a cure. Everyone is a patient. We need to work together towards that.